Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. I'm Joe. Today, my topic is global positioning system and its application. Before I start, I would like you guys to imagine a situation like that. You are having a field trip to a city like Hong Kong. You see the picture. The streets there are very compact, and unfortunately, you get lost in that city. At that moment, if you have a GPS receiver built inside your cell phone, you can find out the positions on your own. So what should you do? First, you just take out your cell phone, then you press some keys to activate your GPS receiver. Then, at the same time, the GPS satellites in the space will do some calculation and send some signal back to your GPS receiver. Eventually, you can reach the positions on the screens of your telephones. This example gives you a explanation, one pictures about how GPS systems operate and one general applications for GPS systems. Normally, we use GPS to find out somebody's positions and someone's speed if he moving on the Earth. Now, I would like to go in details about global positioning system. So, you may wonder what is global positioning systems? Global positioning systems, in short, GPS is a navigation satellite systems created by the United States. This system developed by the United States, the Department of Defense. It includes 24 satellites, and it uses microwave for signal transmission between the Earth and the satellite systems. If we use the GPS systems, it is not necessary to use all the satellites. Just like the example I mentioned before, it only needs 3 satellites. It can find out your positions on the Earth. Now, you may wonder how GPS system work, why it can find out someone's positions. Actually, the operation of a GPS system are very complicated. It is impossible for me to explain all the principles for the GPS systems, but I will give you a big explanations about how GPS systems work. They are included 3 major segments for the GPS systems. They are space segments, control segments, and user segments. They will operate together to calculate your position. First, for the space segments, you see there are this picture shows all the satellites in the space. There includes 24 satellites, and it has 3 orbits. That means 24 satellites will assign to 3 orbits, and each orbit includes 8 satellites. The orbits, for these 3 orbits, there are angles between each orbit. The angle is exactly 120 degrees. Under this arrangement, we stays in the Earth can see 8 to 9 satellites in every point on the Earth. The second segment is the control segment. Actually, the control segment is some stations built on the Earth, and this is some monitoring stations. These stations can collect the signals from the satellites, and they will send all these signals to a control stations. The control stations will give you some calculation and send back to adjust the satellites. The third part is the user segment. Actually, the user segment is your GPS receiver. For a GPS receiver, which contains 3 parts, an antenna, processor, and a cord. For an antenna, it will receive the signals sent from the satellites, and the processor and the cord will do some calculation to calculate your positions and your moving speed on the Earth. And eventually, you can read your speed, your positions on the screens of your telephones if it has a GPS receiver. Generally, GPS provides 2 types of service. The first one is the military application, and the second one is for surveillance application. For the military applications, the armies use the GPS systems to detect some barriers and some enemies they hide in some areas, and it can also be used with a navigator for missile and some warplanes to attack the enemies. Finally, for some unknown areas, we can use the GPS systems for map creation. For surveillance application, it's very general. We can use the GPS systems to detect position and speed of cars, planes, and ships. Also, it also can be used for navigator for some transportation tools like airplanes. And sometimes we use GPS system for long-distance signal transmission. For example, like the Olympics in Beijing, they use the GPS system to publish the games to the world. Now, I have already explained something about GPS, the operation for GPS systems, and some current application. I think you have got a brief understanding about these systems. And actually, this system gives us a lot of convenience, especially for detecting some position and navigation. But however, the system is not perfect at that moment. It only covers 98% on the Earth. So we need to perfect the system in the future. For example, we can increase the number of satellites to make the system more accurate. So I hope in the future, in the soon future, we can get a perfect system. This is some reference related to my presentation. And now is Q&A question. Please feel free to ask questions. Yes?
Do you think the GPS system can apply in Hong Kong? Because you know Hong Kong is a concrete jungle, and the problem may block the satellite transmission.
Actually, the GPS system does not transmit the signal directly to your GPS receiver. And it has some stations, and they will receive the signals from the satellites and then send back the signal to your GPS receiver. So even we stay in Hong Kong, so like our work jungle, we can also apply the GPS system. Yes?
We need to use drone and large signal in order to send over the space. So is the signal powerful?
So
we need to use drone and large signal in order to send the signal over space. So is the signal powerful?
And no, actually, the receiver will never send out some signals. Only when we activate it, the satellites will do some calculation and only send some signals to the receiver. So it's not harmful because it is some microwave is not harmful to human body. Yes.
How can we protect our personal privacy from the GPS system? Because if it becomes common in Hong Kong, I think some of the privacy of us will be lost.
Yes, it's a good question. And actually, just I mentioned to his question, I answered his question before. A GPS receiver will never send out signals. It only receives signals. So it is impossible for someone to get our secret information. Okay, thank you.